You are now watching The Meech.
The Nintendo DS is Nintendo's best-selling console, and for good reason. When it released in the 2000s, it didn't just bring in gamers, it brought in everyone. For the first time, a mom and her son could spend some quality time training their brains, or even taking care of virtual dogs. But if getting smart with Dr. Kawashima isn't your drift, drifting with Rob the Robot and throwing blue shells might just be for you. I'm sure most of us grew up playing the Nintendo DS. Not counting educational systems like the Leapster or Namco plug-and-plays, the Nintendo DS Lite was my first true game console. I initially got the Lite, but quickly went on to the Nintendo DSi because of Flipnote Studio, but this was all the way back in the ancient year 2009. Annoying Orange was just starting up, SpongeBob was about to have the guy on the penny appear as a celebrity guest, and it was the last year of the 2000s, and a lot has changed since then. Mobile gaming went in a full swing, with games like Angry Birds and Candy Crush filling the niche for the casual market. The Nintendo DS did stick around though, with its successor the Nintendo 3DS releasing in 2011, which still remains successful even in an era of smartphones. You might think the Nintendo 3DS is a definitive way to play Nintendo DS games, since it's fully backwards compatible and has its own library of games, but there are a few reasons why I wanted to revisit the Nintendo DS Lite specifically. For one, it's the most popular Nintendo DS model I'm sure many of us either had or knew someone that had, and unlike the Nintendo 3DS systems, the Nintendo DS Lite is very accessible and affordable. You can easily find one for under $50, but the question is it worth getting a Nintendo DS Lite in the year 2023? And how has it held up almost 2 decades later? The original Nintendo DS is what I can only describe as charming. It's like the class clown who everyone liked and was fun to be around, but in reality, had quite the caveat. He was quite ugly. Like, what even is this? It looks like a Game Boy Advance SP combined with a spacecraft. Sure, it's comfortable to hold and play, but even the screen quality is subpar. You might not have even seen the original DS often in the wild, and that's likely because the owners of it are probably felons now. The Nintendo DS Lite, on the other hand, is when that class clown decided to cut back on Mountain Dew, work out, and eventually became a Chad. The system itself is super sleek. The Game Boy Micro is still my favorite Nintendo handheld design-wise, but the Nintendo DS Lite comes in a close second. This was during the iPod era. Sleek pieces of tech were all the rage, and the Nintendo DS Lite definitely feels like that. You probably have noticed my Nintendo DS Lite looks unlike any other, and this is where I have to be transparent. What you can do is swap the shell of an old Nintendo DS Lite in favor of the new ones with really cool designs. This one is atomic purple and is made by Extreme Right. I've sworn by their shells for Joy-Cons and controllers for years now, and was super excited to take a worn-out Nintendo DS Lite and make it a work of art. I had a pink DS Lite that had a bad hinge and a ton of wear, so I completely refurbished it. This project is more advanced than custom Joy-Cons and will require more patience. The only aspect I found to be challenging was feeding the Wi-Fi antenna under the game card slot, but the project itself was straight to the point and absolutely worth doing. I do wonder why Nintendo never made a transparent Nintendo DS, because it looks super cool. Very reminiscent of the classic Game Boy Color. There are even more colors available through Extreme Right's store, and you can even get a discount by using the code DEMEECH. Pretty rad, isn't it? Shell swapping is a great way to bring more personality and customization to your Nintendo DS Lite, but it's also great to restore a worn-out system into something new. The quality of the shell is great, and it retains the sleek design of the Nintendo DS Lite, but it's also what's on the inside that counts. The Nintendo DS Lite has some excellent screens even to this day. They're bright, vivid, and very sharp. The Nintendo DS Lite and DSi have the best screens for playing DS games, considering there's no blur that's present on the 3DS. So this is how they were intended to look, and even to this day, they still look great. You're also getting stereo sound as well as a headphone jack. I couldn't imagine a world without the headphone jack. Imagine seeing people on the streets wearing goofy looking earbuds with the stem sticking out. But most importantly, the Nintendo DS Lite has a stellar battery life. You might need to replace the battery nowadays considering the original ones are almost 2 decades old, but even then, it can still hold a decent charge. It's perfect for those long road trips or playing during class. Okay, maybe not that last one. Use an original Nintendo DS if you want to become a delinquent. What's awesome about the Nintendo DS Lite is not only is it compatible with DS games, but also Game Boy Advance games, so it's like having two systems in one. Natively, it's only compatible with Game Boy Advance games, but believe it or not, the Nintendo DS Lite is capable of more than you'd initially think. The main reason to get a Nintendo DS Lite is to play DS games, but considering the platform is now retro, you might wonder how the games have held up. Honestly, the Nintendo DS has one of the greatest gaming libraries of any console. Mario is my favorite series, and the DS absolutely delivers with the portly plumber. New Super Mario Bros., Mario Kart DS, Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, and even Super Princess Peach remain some of my favorites in the series. Even more obscure games like Yoshi's Island DS are still a good time. And the Pokemon games are still the best in the series, Pokemon Soul Silver being my favorite, but there's so much more to the DS and it has games for nearly everyone. There's a ton of variety and many games to choose from, even to this day, and the games are still a blast. Even when the games are more simplistic to cater being on a handheld, there's still a ton of fun to play, and that's just accounting for Nintendo DS games. The Game Boy Advance also has a great library, not as good as the DS, but being able to play Game Boy Advance games is only a good thing, and considering the quality of the screens, it's also an ideal way to play Game Boy Advance games if you want a backlit screen, but are looking for something more accessible than an AGS 101 or a Game Boy Micro, so the DS Lite is an excellent solution to playing Game Boy Advance games. The Nintendo DS Lite is still a gaming beast in the year 2023. It might lack the bells and whistles of its successors such as cameras and DSiWare, but considering you can get one for under $50, that's already a steal. But the way to get the most bang for your buck is with the addition of a flash card. R4 cards are the primary Nintendo DS flash cards. What they allow you to do is load games via a microSD card, as well as being able to run homebrew applications such as emulators. Considering how absurdly expensive the Pokemon games specifically are, this is what I consider to be the ideal way going about playing them nowadays. You won't break the bank, and also have the convenience of having all the games on one cartridge. What's also great about R4 cards is they're ideal for playing ROM hacks. I was able to play newer Super Mario Bros. DS just using an R4 card, and it's great. It's an incredible mod of New Super Mario Bros., and is so much better than any of Nintendo's sequels to the game. You're getting brand new worlds, power-ups, and a ton of new mechanics. This also applies to fan translations. You can play Chibi Robo Clean Sweep in English just by using an R4 card. As I mentioned before, only Game Boy Advance games are natively compatible, but you can play original Game Boy and Game Boy Color games using either an R4 card or the Easy Flash. They use emulation, and I found them to run better on Goomba on the Easy Flash, but it's decent just using an R4 card if you want to play Game Boy games in a pinch. You can also use other emulators for systems like the NES, but the reliability varies. I was content just being able to load games via a microSD card and being able to play ROM hacks, but the options are here if you want to go for emulation, just don't have too high of expectations. So far I've established the Nintendo DS Lite is still an excellent way to experience the DS and Game Boy Advance library, and the potential of the system can further be unlocked with the addition of a flash card, not to mention some snazzy customization. Is it worth getting one in 2023? Absolutely. There are quite a few reasons why the Nintendo DS Lite is still worth getting. The affordability is the biggest factor, but the screen quality and battery life are also huge pros. Is it going to be the ultimate handheld system in terms of emulation? Probably not, but thanks to the huge library of games and sleek design, it's held up very well. And if you want to mod it with a shell swap, it makes it even cooler. So what do you guys think? Which Nintendo DS did you own growing up? Let me know in the comments, and as always, keep calm and da-da on.